Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, CesarRespino. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, CesarRespino, and today I have a special guest. His name is Emanuel Isaacson, and I want to give you a little bit of his background before we dive in. He is an anxiety coach who helps people overcome and heal their anxiety disorders. He himself went through multiple anxiety disorders and depression and was able to overcome them naturally. About 2 years ago, he decided that he should help people and show them how to overcome their struggles with anxiety and depression naturally, just like the way he did. Hey, Emanuel, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you? How's everything?
Good. Thank you. Everything's good. So tell me a little bit more about you. Why don't we start by telling me your upbringing and where are you originally from?
I'm originally from New York. Was born and raised over here, and my upbringing wasn't the most supportive, I would say. It was a very aggressive upbringing because I don't blame my parents. It's because that's what they knew. And they were trying their best to help me out, the best of their knowledge and everything. But the way we grew up wasn't the most, healthiest way, I would say, just to summarize it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No, definitely. So tell me more. I mean, because obviously, when I look at even the things you've gone through and you've been able to overcome, right? Being able to overcome anxiety disorder and being able to overcome a lot of those different things, depression, things like that.
Yeah.
That, as you mentioned, maybe you didn't have that great of an upbringing, except a lot of times that starts from your childhood, right? And it starts from the things you're living. So let's talk about that and dive in more into that, because I do believe that is critical. Like, I believe that anything that we do up to this point is based on really who we were. And so tell me more about some of the challenges you were facing as a kid or growing up.
Well, we grew up very poor, I would say. They don't have that much, I would say, in the fridge, clothing wise, even. Thankfully, because my dad, he did have, but he lost everything. And it was a very, I would say, aggressive home, meaning with the anger and everything, with the arguments and everything, and just everything more negative. Everything is fear-based more than be more optimistic. Especially with my mom, I would say that I've realized that she came more from a house. Now I realize that everything is fear. Don't do this. Don't go here. Don't do that. Especially with let's say in New York back in the 90s wasn't the safest place, and she was very worried about that in general. But even with their relationship with me, my parents, I would say, wasn't the best relationship, because again, where they came from, how they grew up, they came from Russia. So, from communism, they're used to a certain way. They're thinking in a certain way. You understand? They came from a place that's not supportive or anything like that. So the others projected onto us, and it really affected. We're one of five, so my older brother, me, and my younger sister. That affected the most with depression and anxiety, because my brother also goes through depression and he has anxiety, and he does it with more meds. And this is why I realized, I was like, I don't want to do that because it doesn't help. It more helps with developing, because they came from somewhere, like you said. It comes from somewhere. It's not something that is boom out of nowhere. It doesn't happen that way. So I believe that, and I said to myself, I need to work on my mindset, on my emotions, on my spirituality, on my physicality, and these kind of things can help me to move forward and in a way not make the same mistakes as my parents did. But yeah.
Right. No, definitely. So what were some, did you feel like even growing up and maybe into your high school years, or even if you went to college, right? the idea of the depression, right? And I don't know if you had any of that as you were growing up. I said, how was that dealing with other people and maybe not feeling that support, right? I mean, if you felt like you probably didn't have the support at home, what about on the outside of the house?
I would say the same exact thing. The support wise was lacking tremendously, especially when I went through the anxiety and depression. Also that place was lacking. I had to do everything on my own. It was like 12 years ago when I went through anxiety. There
Mm-hmm.
wasn't any social media or anything like that to connect with other people. So it took me a while to find somebody who was able to help me, who understood what I was going through. But the
Right.
depression, whenever I went through anxiety and depression, was from when I was 20 years old.
Okay.
That's whenever it started. That's when it triggered my anxiety, and then all of a sudden it developed into depression, and that lasted for about 3 years. But in in the outside, even when I was growing up, you would say I was very aggressive myself. I used to be very angry. I used to get into a lot of fights, causing a lot of trouble, because that's, I guess now I understood, as a form of attention from
Mm,
people. And even
yeah.
in school, did not do well in school at all,
Yeah.
in high school,
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
More on the trouble side.
No,
you
I
know.
get it. I mean, and I can definitely, to an extent, I can definitely relate to some of those things because, again, at the end of the day, as you see it, and you put it now, is like sometimes you were seeking for that attention, that validation, because you didn't have that support system, or
Yeah.
you didn't feel like there was that community or that unity. So therefore, hey, what else can I do? Is be that tough guy that is going to end
Yeah.
up getting into fights and do this all of this to
Yeah.
unconsciously attract that attention, right?
Yeah.
Besides getting into trouble and doing all that stuff, did you in your early 20s, did you turn into any negative or bad habits through your depression, or anxiety? A lot of times, might turn into, drinking. Some people might turn into drugs. Some people might turn into different things that really are not serving you. And while it might be something to numb the pain, at the end of the day, that's definitely gets you deeper and deeper in that hole, right? So, anything that you experienced from that perspective?
So whenever before I would say before I went through an anxiety depression, I used to smoke a lot of weed and I used to drink a lot. When I hit anxiety and depression, I kind of made like a 180 change because I wanted to get healthier. I wanted to change my ways. So while I was going through anxiety depression, I didn't drink, I didn't smoke any weed, and I haven't smoked already for, I would say, 13 years already. I haven't touched weed or anything like that or any drugs. So beforehand, I would say morehand, because I was, again, numbing myself, you would
Yeah,
say, to
yeah,
avoid that thing that finally caught up to me when I was
right.
20 years old. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah, yeah, no,
That's what it is.
definitely, I get it. And so you talked about a couple of things that I think are huge, and definitely I want to dive more into that. And you said, you definitely ended up working on getting better naturally, right? Not getting
Yeah.
into meds or anything like that. You actually got, you decided, you made a decision of making changes so that you can heal naturally. Part of that is, I think, is a decision, right? So I guess my question is, how difficult was it for you to make the decision? Because a lot of people get stuck in making that decision.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a big one for me because when you're going through anxiety and depression, you feel hopeless, you feel lost, you don't know what's happening with you, and especially with the depression. Like, I've never felt like that in my life, and it's like a pain that you've never experienced before. It's not like regular pain. So like whenever you hear about like meds, when that thing pops up, you're like, oh, okay, now I have hope. Maybe that's the answer.
Mm,
Maybe that is my way of getting out of this. But thankfully, I was this close. I even went to the psychiatrist, and I was sitting with him in his office, and I was explaining to him what I was going through, and he was like, "It seems like you're going through depression and anxiety. I'm gonna prescribe you some medication." And he gave me like a few pills in his office. He's like, "You can take this for now." And I remember taking it with me, and my brother, he called me because he went through anxiety and depression, and he takes medication. And until today, he takes medication. He's like,
mm,
"Emmanuel, do me a favor." He's like, "Just please hold it off." He's like, listen, David, it's very hard for me. I'm
yeah,
very hopeless. I'm lost. I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm going nuts. I feel like I'm going crazy. Like, nobody understands me. I don't know what I'm going through. He's like, just please do me a favor. He's like, taking medication, getting off it is going to be hell for you. Trust me. I know anxiety is bad and depression is bad, but the medication is way worse if you want to get off it. And sometimes it has side effects. And thankfully to my brother, thankfully to him, I decided not to take it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to try the natural. And I threw out the medication. I remember in the garbage over there, and I threw it out, and I didn't even go get the prescription from it. And then a few months later, well, 3 years later, it took me a while to get out of it, but it started to get much better, my anxiety. But thankfully, that was the hard part right there, because it was right in my hand. I was like, okay, this is the solution. That's what I thought what the solution is. And a lot of, like you said, a lot of people do think that's the solution.
Right.
But the reality is there's something in our mind and in our emotions that something's bothering us. Yeah. And I've seen that over and over again with people. When I do my sessions with people, I've seen that over and over again.
No, definitely. And that's exactly, again, being able to do that. And I guess the next question I have is, obviously, not taking the medication, whether it was right or wrong, people will have different points of views. At the end of the day, that making that decision was a process, right? Because it's not something that immediately, now you're like, okay, I'm gonna deal with this without any medication, and I gotta be stronger to be able to overcome it, right? And that can be a process. And you talked about the mind and the emotions, things that you have to deal with. So tell me a little bit about some of the emotions that you were feeling, you were going through, and what emotions did you ended up bringing into fruition to really help you? Because again, I believe that at any given point, depending on what's going on in our lives, we have the ability, and we do really have the option, the choice to decide what emotion that I want to feel. Do I want to feel happy today? Do I want to smile? Do I want to cry? Do I want to scream? Do I want to be angry? Like, we do have the ability to essentially, and it's not an easy thing, yet we do have the ability to turn on or off those emotions depending on where we're going. I see it a lot. I too do a lot of self-development events, and I see people where out of nowhere, you trigger and you tell them, hey, start laughing. Like you just heard the biggest punchline to a joke, and people start laughing, right? Again, people can turn on and off those emotions, except it's not an easy thing. So tell me about some of the emotions, and then how did you turn them on or off to help you?
So the thing is that you have a point of view of turning on and off the emotions. But with an anxiety disorder, it's not an easy thing to do, to turn it on and off, because whenever you have an anxiety disorder or depression even, it's your emotions that is in control. Like, you're going to try to turn off, like, it's not like a sadness, like, okay, you know what, I can do something to make myself feel good. No, the sadness is just with you, and it's a pain. Also with the anxiety, it's not something that you can just gradually, like, you know what, I'm just going to turn it off now. Like, it doesn't work that way. I wish you did it with the anxiety, but in generally speaking, you could do that. You could choose, like, hey, I choose to be this way. And I've done it also with myself. And generally speaking, I've done it with myself. Like, you know what, why am I choosing to get stressed out? Like, wait, I choose to be calmer and be more happier in life. But with anxiety and depression, it's kind of different with that. And the way whenever I was going through it, it was more of accepting my emotions. Because that's a big thing. Whenever we are not feeling well, let's say, for example, we're feeling down, we're feeling angry, we're feeling frustrated. Most of the time, what we're trying to do is try to run away from it. Right? They try to numb it, try to escape from it, drinking, drugs, having fun time, whatever it is. But the first thing that I've learned whenever I was going through the process was to more accept my anxiety, to accept the way I feel, to acknowledge it, to embrace it. Like, hey, you know what? I feel depressed right now. I feel sad right now. I feel angry right now. I have that anger within me. I feel that. So that's what I did. That's the first step that I did in order to, like, understand my emotions and also work with them. Because again, turning it off is very hard whenever you're overwhelmed with emotions. It's like whenever something tragic happens to somebody, it's like, let's say a family member dies, right? It's like that first hit. It's like you can't control that. That's like a wave of emotion you just gotta let pass by and let it be with it. That was one of the most effective ways, and the first step for me to move forward with my anxiety and overcome my depression.
Yeah, no, and definitely, I do believe that that's huge too, right? And a lot of times we got to be able to, as you said, we have to learn how to accept, acknowledge, and then even sometimes sit on that emotion for a little bit.
Yeah.
Except the biggest thing is don't sit on that emotion too long. You got to take action and make that change, right?
Yeah, exactly. You have to take action, and that's what I did. Yeah, you first need to acknowledge it. You can't just be, okay, this is my situation and I'm giving up.
Yeah.
No, you got to like take the action now. And the action is the hardest part over there. It's like, okay, what am I doing over here? Is it the right thing I'm doing it? Am I doing the wrong thing? Like also on the same thing as well with the emotions, whenever you have that, right? You feel like that thing, you accept it. Okay, now what do I do with it? Like, okay, like, do I just sit here with it or do I move forward? No, we got to move forward. That's what it is. We got to get someplace where we want to be, have that imagination and plant that seed for where we want to be,
Yeah, no, that's huge. And then obviously that's a big also mental aspect. And there's a lot of things that come down to, working on your mind, right? And your mental well-being. So tell me about some of the things that you did to help you with that in terms of working on your mind, your spirituality, things to that nature.
So with the number one thing for me personally, big thing for me is spirituality. Like if I have a lack of spirituality, I feel it. Like I feel like that lack of connection, the lack of clarity. So for me, I constantly every single day try to talk to God.
Hmm.
Just speaking. Again, I know some people don't believe it or don't believe it, do believe it, but for me personally, this is what helped
Hmm.
me. I
Hmm.
spoke to God every single day while I was going through it, and to today, sometimes I do speak with God. When I'm going through struggles, and even when I'm just saying, what, God, thank you for this, or thank you for that, or try to focus on the good things that I have. So that is one thing that helped me tremendously, and in the guidance I would say that God gave me. He gave me a lot of guidance in overcoming my anxiety. And with my mindset was more developing, and my emotions more developing my self-esteem, my self-confidence, more and more belief in myself. Because again, when you grow up a certain way, whenever no one believes in you and like you have no support and no one telling you good things or anything like that, it kind of affects your emotions, it affects your self-esteem, it affects your self-confidence and the belief of who you are. So I worked on that tremendously. I went to seminars, workshops, read books, listened to a lot of videos. Les Brown is like one of my biggest person. I love listening to this guy.
Yeah.
He's like this powerful force. So I was able to change my mind and believing things differently. Like I was afraid of failure, and I looked at failure differently, from more of a negative thing to more of a positive thing, and saying, what, failure is a learning opportunity. It sucks that I failed. Yeah, it hurts, but I can learn from that and apply it for the next thing and do that over and over again. So that's what I did to develop my mindset. And of course, it wasn't a 1, 2, 3 thing. I had somebody to help me.
Hmm.
Doing it on my own is not a simple thing because we only know what we know. Somebody
Right.
else has some other knowledge.
Yeah, yeah. I like what you mentioned, and a lot of times we gotta be able to figure out how can I see something with a different lens or a different point of view, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times the challenge is that we're only seeing it from our perspective, and we're so close-minded that we don't want to see uh, how if I was to look at it from a different perspective, different lens, what would be the possibilities of whatever's in front of us, right? And a lot of times we are so easily judgmental, and also we talk ourselves out of doing something and or believing something because of our own mental thoughts, right? So I like the fact
Yeah.
that I think that's a huge takeaway, that we got to be able to understand that everything in life we have to be able to see it from a different point of view, and more than anything we also got to be able to control our emotions to an
Yeah.
extent, and also, as you mentioned, do more of those things that are going to serve you in terms of getting your mind right. I believe that just like if people want to go to the gym, they want to get fit and they want to look good, right? They're obviously working out, they're eating certain things to kind of feed their body so they can kind of get that body that they're looking for. Our minds is the same way, right? We got to be able to fit it with the right ingredients, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
listening to different podcasts, going to seminars, hanging around with the right type of people, and all
Yeah.
of that will make a big difference, right?
Yeah. 100%. 100%. I made a huge overhaul in who I hang out with.
Mm,
Like my friend group became like tiny, like
yeah,
literally tiny because of that, because of my mental health and because of the care for myself. Like I want to nurture myself with people that are good for me, not people that are going to destroy me, even the environments. Like I've left jobs because of the environment, because of the people there, because I was like, this is not for me. There's too much drama over here and too much negativity. I'm good with that. I'll find something else. And every time I did that, I was happy with the decision. So definitely has an effect. 100%.
yeah.
100%.
No, yeah, definitely. And so tell me a little bit about, obviously you went through all of that, you healed uh, naturally, and you've obviously in a different place now. And
Yeah.
then you decided, you had this idea of, what about if I can do this for other people in other people that might be going through the same challenges and be able to help them. Tell me about how that came about, and then also talk to me about what you're doing in your coaching.
So I never thought in my life when I went through an anxiety, I would become an anxiety coach. There's no way in hell, because I just wanted to forget about it, because that's how bad it was. Like I always said to myself, I don't wish this on my worst enemy. That's how bad anxiety is and depression. But it came kind of like naturally in a way, I would say, because there was people that I knew that would talk to me about their issues, and they would tell me like, I'm struggling with depression and anxiety. And when I would tell them, like, I went through it and I overcame it, they were kind of shocked. They're like, you seem like such a happy guy. Like, how in the world did you even go through this? And I told him, like, how did you overcome it? And just from a few conversations from certain people that I personally, like, I knew from my neighborhood and everything, I was able to help them to overcome it. And I saw that I have this kind of like, in a way, gift that God gave me, that I'm able to help other people. And I was always pushing off that thing. I said, no, I can't really become an anxiety coach. Like, there's no way in hell. Like, who am I? I went through it. So what if I overcame it? I never thought that I was good enough, and never believed in myself that I was able to do it. But over time, I saw that I was able to like help people. And I said to myself, and I always had this like certain like, like you have that voice in the back of your head that tells you like, oh, you should do this. And like, you kind of like wash it off. Like, nah, forget about it. It's good and everything. And I think it was just like annoying. It was like a little like bird is picking on me, like this, hey, do it. And I just decided one day, I'm like, you know what? I see that I can help people. I'm going to try to do this full time now and see what kind of impact that I have. And I said to myself, like, Emanuel, even if you help one person, is that going to be worth it? And I said, yeah, it's definitely going to be worth it, because I know that pain that they're going through. I understand their struggle. So I said, like, it's definitely worth to take the risk in doing this. And thankfully, I'm so happy that I do it. And through my one-on-ones, I help people through one-on-ones. And through that, and also through my course, that through my one-on-ones, I work with people, because anxiety comes from a subconscious mind. So I work with them on their subconscious mind, on their conscious mind, thinking, changing their mindset from more negative to more positive. I help them out. I try to go delve into the subconscious mind and change those things that made us, like you said in the beginning, it made us who we are today, and it's affecting us until we are today. And I changed that. And it's been amazing to see the results on people, how much I've been able to help them out.
I love that. How long did you start this journey?
About, I would say 2 years ago, about 2 years ago.
One thing that I think is huge to take away from that, and you mentioned that, is that you said, if I can make a difference for one person, and would that be worth it, right? And you essentially kind of took that leap of faith and said, I'm gonna go ahead and run with this and see what comes out of it. And the lesson there for me, I think, and for many people, is that oftentimes we jump on things because there's no real purpose or there's no real reason why we're jumping on something. And there's one thing that I talk a lot about on this podcast, is that, especially for people that are trying to venture into entrepreneurship, or even people that have their 9 to 5, is that if you're doing something for profits, I think you're doing it wrong. You have to do it for purpose, and the profits will come. Right?
Yes.
When you only focus on the profits, though, and there's no purpose, that ride can die or end pretty soon. You might be, and I was one of them. I was one of them when I left my 9 to 5 and venturing to becoming a full-time investor. And I was looking at, okay, how can I make more money? How can I make more money? And then sooner or later, I was making money, and then it kind of ended. And I'm like, why? Why did that end it? Because I felt that there was not that purpose or something bigger or greater, right? And so, when you mentioned that, it reminded me of that, and I think that's a huge lesson to take away from that. So.
Yeah, definitely. That's a big thing, and that's from my own experiences. Like, I worked in jobs. Like, I used to work in sales jobs, and within 6 months, I would burn out because I didn't believe in the product, or not even believe, but like I just didn't like selling. Like, I'm like, I don't like doing this. Like, I don't have a passion for this. I have no purpose in this. Like, it doesn't like move me. If I was selling something that I really had a passion for, or I believed in, and I had a purpose, then I would do it all the time. It doesn't matter if it's a job or doing it on my own. But this is like the first time, like you said, like this is my first time ever that I'm actually doing something that I'm passionate about. And like, it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to develop or to do podcasts every day and this and that, all these things that you have to do one-on-one session. It's not an easy thing, but like, I said to myself, like, Emanuel, if you don't have a passion for this, you didn't have a purpose for this, you would have given up way longer. You would have given up in the
Right.
beginning already. So
Yeah.
yeah, purpose and passion is going to make you happier in life, 100%. And it definitely affects people.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. So let me ask you this: if people wanted to learn more about you, the things you have going on, where can they connect with you?
They can connect with me on I have a podcast also, the Anxiety Doesn't Own Me podcast. I also have a website. It's www.yswithin.com. It's yourstrengthwithin.com. They can definitely connect me with that. And also my email address. I have an email, so they can send me an email. It's yourstrengthwithin@yswithin.com. And they can send me an email over there if they ever want to get in touch or anything like that. And also, I have a lot of social media
Yeah,
on my website. It's connected to all my social media accounts.
gotcha,
But if they want more tips and more information and everything, I talk more in depth on my podcasts about like anxiety, and I try to produce almost every day, an episode
got it. Okay,
over there.
talking about the people you're coaching right now, and you're doing one-on-one, right? That's kind of like the program. Is it? I would assume it's tailored to each individual person, right? Or is it a number of sessions that you coach the people with, or how does that work?
Well, it's a yes or no. It's like, because
Mhm.
anxiety is an overall thing. Like, I understand why it's the same thing for every single person, why they have an anxiety disorder. Like, I understand why they have depression, but it's also more personalized in dealing with their subconscious mind. So it's both hand in hand. So there's an
Gotcha.
overall thing and there's more personalized, but the amount of sessions, it all depends on the person, because at the end of the day, to overcome things, it all depends on how much we're willing to put in the effort. So I give all the material and all the information, and it all depends on the person of what they want to apply and what they want to do at the end of the day. But I provide everything over there to give you the opportunity to overcome that I did, the things that I did, you know.
Yeah,
So there is no amount of time, how long it's going to take. It all depends on the person.
yeah. No, I get it. One of the things that I have here in my notes, and I think is pretty good, and if you can just kind of elaborate more, because again, if somebody, whoever might be watching this, if they're actually going through this right now, and they may not believe it yet, they might be in that state of mind where like, nah, this is not gonna happen, right? Instead,
Yeah.
you mentioned here, if you're struggling with anxiety, just know there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Don't give up. How do you give somebody, right? That again, I'm like, I don't see it. Like it looks dark. I don't see that light at the end of the tunnel, yet you're giving them that message, don't give up. What can they do now for in the meantime, right, to kind of keep moving forward and start shifting and changing that idea that, you know what, maybe there is some hope?
That's a very good question. That is a very good question. I like that question. Like, what can I do? Because um, I will tell them this way, and this is what I tell a lot of people, is that just know that whatever you know is not what everything is out there. Meaning that whatever you know in your mind, because whenever I was going through it, right, personally, I felt like I tried everything in the world, but the reality was that I didn't try everything. And there's things out there to help you with your situation. There's things out there that will get you to the place where you'll be anxiety free. Like for me, you can take me as an example, or other people that I've helped as an example. And there are people out there that have overcame it as an example that it's possible to overcome it, that there is a way to overcome it. The only thing is that you just don't know yourself in how to get to that place or what to do exactly. So I provide a 30-minute free session with them in the beginning. So I talk with them and I show them. And whenever I tell that to people, they're like, oh, that does make sense. It does give me hope because you went through it and you overcame it and you understand me. So there is definitely a way to overcome this thing. They just don't know how to yet. And I want to show them that.
Gotcha. Got it. My last two questions for you is: number one is, you obviously work a lot on your mind, your emotions, as again you mentioned your spirituality. What other things do you do on a day-to-day basis to kind of keep you up and going and in a positive state of mind?
So the thing is that I do is that every single morning, morning is the most important thing, because the subconscious mind is the most open there, because we're the most vulnerable right there. And even before you go to sleep, I think more whenever you wake up. So the first thing I do when we wake up in the morning is I put positive affirmations in my mind about who I am. Like, I don't go to my phone. Like, the first hour or so, when I wake up, because I have kids and everything, I'm not looking at my phone at all. Like, I'm in the morning, the first thing when I wake up, open my eyes, is that I say positive affirmations about myself, about things that's going to happen. So or I even have this notebook that I write down what I'm grateful for in life. And I would sit there also in the morning and talk to God. Like a big thing for me is talking to God and showing like, I'm grateful for this. Thank you for this. Help me out with this. Like I'm having a struggle with this. I don't understand why it's happening, but I have faith in you. I have confidence in you that you're going to help me out. So those are the kind of like morning routine that I have. Like positive affirmation. I don't look at the phone or anything like that. And I would sit there and talk with God for about 10, 15 minutes. And also with the notebook to write grateful things that I'm grateful for.
I love that. Definitely. I love the idea of writing grateful stuff too. That a
Yeah.
lot of people, we forget a lot about that. And a lot of times the biggest thing is, we just got to be grateful for the fact that we're alive. And one of the things I tell
Yeah.
people is whether you believe in God or you believe in a greater power or whoever you believe in, the fact that
Yeah.
you're listening to this, you're watching this, that means that greater power or God is not over with you. And there's still so many things you can do and accomplish. And so therefore you got to be grateful for that. So
Yeah.
that's huge. Last
Yeah.
question for you is, if people are going through any challenge, whatever challenge that might be, what is one tip you can give them right now so they can start overcoming that challenge?
Is that one tip? It's kind of like there's so many things running through my mind, what they can do. So whenever I look at a big challenge, right, in life, like something I need to do, I take it step by step. Like I don't try to get overwhelmed by it, but like I try to take it one thing at a time. I try to like break it down for me to make it much easier for me. You understand? So whenever I'm trying to do something, let's say, for example, like I'm trying to build this thing, right? I would take it step by step instead of thinking like, oh my God, I have so many things to do. It's impossible. It's too much. I can't handle it. So I take one thing at a time. But if they're going through a certain struggle, through a certain hardship in life, I try to tell them like, look at the past situations that you've been through. And we built this certain reality in our mind of how things are going to be, but most of the time that reality doesn't happen. And something else completely happens. I try to show them the past things of how we thought something bad was going to happen through our struggles, but in the end, it wasn't as bad as we thought as it was going to be. And I tell them like, listen, just try to be positive about the situation and try to look at it more in a positive way so that it can help you to move forward through the hardships. Because I'll give you an personal example with my brother. He had a tumor in his brain, the size of a baseball. It's cancer. And he was literally on his deathbed. And I remember I was speaking to his wife and I told his wife, I'm like, listen, you should know this guy is going to get out of this thing. Like I said it, he's going to get out of it. He's going to live longer than the doctors. Trust me. He's like, he's not going to die. And I'm telling you, after a month, this guy started to walk again. He started to talk again, and he got out of it. And I was trying to be more hopeful about the situation instead of automatically thinking the doctor said he's going to die. That's it. And I said, no, he's going to live. And it's already been 2 years and he's cancer-free and no more tumor or anything like that. So try to build that, positivity in it, into it.
Yeah. You know what? I love that. And that's a really good example of, again, just because something is showing up in a certain way, we don't have to accept that. And I also believe that we got to figure out how can we, as you mentioned, be more positive, because at the end of the day, that all of that is an energy source, right? And so the moment we start thinking more positive things, doing the affirmations, knowing that there's light at the end of the tunnel, we're bringing more of that positive energy and getting rid of all the negativity around us, right? Which is going to help us really get to the next level. So I definitely love that. That's huge.
Yeah, definitely. It's a big thing. It's hard, but it's possible if you train your mind. Eventually, you can get there.
Yeah, no, definitely no.
Yeah.
Well, Emanuel, this has been an amazing day. Thank you again for sharing everything that you've shared with us. Is there anything else you want to say before I let you go?
Yeah, I just want to let know people that are going through anxiety that it's possible to overcome it. Don't think that's the end of the tunnel. Like you have no way of going out of it, and that there is hope in overcoming it. And I'm the person that can show you the way, and because I've been through it and I understand what you're going through. And this thing is going to be the best thing for you. Trust me. I know it sounds weird, but it really is.
Yeah, I love that. Well, again, thank you again for being here on the show. And for the rest of you guys, for the rest of you guys, do me a favor, make sure that you share this podcast, because definitely somebody has to hear this message. And I'll see you guys at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm CesarRespino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.